gotta take a deep breath today because today is gonna be rough. My guys. Rough in the sense of it's a lot of information. Basically, there's yesterday was an intro. Today's gonna be the, I won't say advanced, but if you screw things up easily, or if you click the wrong thing once, your whole entire part is gonna have to be restarted. So we gotta make sure we pay close attention to the video, and we'll be good to go. Well, I meant Tuesday when we talked about it. Yesterday was literally just a work day for everybody, so I didn't do anything. So if your Google's not working, open up Microsoft Edge, and you should be able to go and type into Microsoft Edge into the URL at the top, google.com. For whatever reason, Chrome is crashing on everybody's computer. I don't know why. Don't type in Google into the search menu. Sorry, type into the URL at the top. Type in google.com, and then you'll be able to go and do everything. Then you'll be able to type in Classroom or whatever right there. I don't know why Google Chrome's crashing. It's crashing on every computer, downstairs, upstairs. So it kind of is what it is. We'll figure it out once we get there. Okay. Okay. So the big thing, you should just click it. You should. Okay, so like I said, there's going to be, basically this is part 2 of the assemblies. Please, for the love of all that is sacred, don't try and do this while I'm doing it. Don't be in Fusion trying to work on this. Just follow along in the sense of just understanding what we're doing, okay? It's not that hard, it's just that if you make one mistake, the whole entire thing crashes and burns. So we got to make sure that you follow close attention to what I'm doing. I am going to stream it, obviously, so that means that it's going to be recorded. There is a video already up there. If you don't want to listen to me and try and watch the video already, you're more than welcome to. Miss M did that. There is no talking in it. It's just straight up what you do. So I'm going to show a little extra than what she did, but you can do your own thing. Okay? Are we all on the stream that people want to watch anyways? All right, let's keep going here. So the good thing about this is that it's kind of the big work, I guess, as far as drawing stuff and building stuff is already done for you, which helps tremendously. So if you look at basically Google Classroom, you guys are going to see in Unit 2 now, it says Assemblies Part 2, and then when you click on the link, it goes to this little walkthrough. Again, it's just a walkthrough like we've always done. This also walks you through all the pieces and everything. Again, the good part is that it automatically is kind of built for you, and you just have to put it together like a puzzle. So basic training, 0, 6 assemblies, and 6 tripods. So if I go into Fusion, basically in Fusion, you go down to basic training, and yours is going to look something like this when you guys press back button all the way back to your name. Towards the bottom, you'll see samples, and then on basic training, you'll find number 6. Why these aren't in order, I have no idea. But you go to assemblies, number 6, and then you drop all the way down, and you'll see tripod number 6 right here. Okay. Now it looks like it's together once we open it up, but it is not. So make sure that you guys understand the fact that you're not done before you even start. First thing that they kind of make you do is ground a piece. And we talked about grounding yesterday and what it does. Basically all grounding does is allows you to have one piece that stays the same or stays solid, and then the rest of them don't. So this has kind of changed names already, and that's another thing that is not explained inside of these step-by-steps. So the first thing it kind of tells you to do is throw everything apart and then revert it just to show you that it goes to separate. So if you picked any one of these parts and drug them out and moved them around, all these parts are separated all the way down to literally these little pins in here that they've made invisible. Okay? So this whole entire thing are separate parts. And what you're going to do today is you're going to put the whole thing together like you see it right here. So if we just press back and again just revert, it'll automatically go back to where it was before. Okay, so if you screw something up, move something that you're not supposed to move, you have no idea which way it's supposed to go together, just press that button and everything will go back. The first thing that they kind of make you do is they make you ground this main base piece. Don't click surfaces, try not to click the part. The only thing that I do to click these parts is to identify what the heck part it is over here. So if you click, for example, like this little thing, oh, I know it's the leg. Oh, I know it's part of this or whatever, right? So in this case, this whole entire part is the stand. And then if you drop that down, you're going to see component 25. That's this piece. Right-click component 25, and you press ground. Now that part alone can't be moved. Now everything else can, like I showed you before, but that's the only piece that still can't be moved. Even if I revert it, go back, do whatever. So now that I have a couple pieces, and that piece is grounded, basically from there, it shows you can move all those pieces, put them back, that kind of stuff. Ground that piece. Now what we're going to do is start adding some different joints. I taught you guys basically rigid, and I taught you revolute, which basically one keeps them all together and doesn't move left, right, up, down, side to side, whatever. The other one just rotates a little cylinder inside of a cylinder. That's the first assembly that we did. Now we're going to go over basically the rest of them all in one assembly. So if I go back here, the first thing it's going to tell me to do is try and make this slider slide in and out. So I would leave this stuff together as much as I possibly can. If you need to see inside of here, I wouldn't even move stuff, to be honest with you. I would click the object, and I would come over here and change the eyeball so that it disappears. It's still there, okay? It's just not visible so that you can work on stuff inside of it. Makes it a lot easier than moving stuff and worrying about it later, okay? So the first thing it tells me to do is try and make these two things, and this is just a tripod for like a camera or something, move in and out. So assembly, and then as-built joint we've talked about before. And now instead of using all those, please don't click while I'm doing this, guys. Please don't click. Then you have sliders, the third one. So this is a new one. So slider allows you to click. First you want what part you want to make move inside of the second part. Okay? So then it should animate that piece, and then it selects the position as the next part. We want this to go inside of this part. And again, if you collect this part, you'll see it looks great. If I deselect that and I select the inside part to the second part, it looks like it works too. So the slider part's not a big deal, and it doesn't really matter which one you select for position anyways, which is right here, okay? Components, you got to make sure you pick the right components in the right order. What you want to move, then what is going to go inside of, okay? So again, I can just animate that. You can see it's kind of sliding in and out. We'll talk about that later. So now when I try and move this part, no matter what, these are still going to move because I haven't grounded them or moved, or basically jointed them to anything else. So this whole sliding thing won't even look right. But if you notice, if I do it to one, you see how it automatically did it to the other legs. That's because these legs are all within one system, meaning that I created this one and then I just copied it. So it's great. So if you do one thing to one, like I'm going to make these things lock onto the bottom, these bumpers on the bottom, they'll do it to all three, which is going to help you a lot. Okay. So again, the next thing, it says slider. That's an easy one. Rigid. So now it's saying as built rigid, add a joint to the bottom end cap. So pretty straightforward stuff. Go through here, rotate this around, as built joint. What I want to stop into what I want to connect it to, and we don't want it to slide. We want it to be rigid. So it locks that piece in. We're good to go. Press OK. It does it to all of them, so we shouldn't see how when I move the stopper now, they're not coming off the piece, which is what we want. Vert back. Next thing you do, add a joint to the top end cap. Now this is really confusing. You can't really see what the heck they're trying to add or what they're trying to do. But basically they're just trying to make to the top end cap, which is really straightforward, this little cap they want to connect to that. So it's the same exact thing we just did at the bottom, except we're doing it to the top part now. I want this part to connect to this part and be rigid. Make sure that these are all good. And again, they are. You don't move anything else. Okay? The other part, that one wasn't hard. This is the weird one. So if you look really close, there's just a lot going on in here. All they're trying to do is make a joint, as-built joint, to one of the top caps and the connector attached to it. So they're trying to make this little, like, they call it a tombstone thing connected to this end cap. And all that means is you make it rigid again, and I can't see it. So it's right back here, but you can't really see it. So again, I click this piece, I make it go bye-bye, and then I can see those tombstones that are sticking out there. Okay? So again, assemble, as-built joint, and these ones are going to be rigid. So I make that one to the cap, I lock it in, I press OK. To make sure that these other ones are good, and you can see those other rigid things are already good. Revert back, bring that other piece back, bring that other piece back if I wanted to. They're all still there, they're just not visible. Okay? Next piece. This one's kind of fun. So this is the revolute. This is how the legs are going to swing back and forth. So again, this is important on what you select and when you select it. So if you go back and you say, I want to make an as-built joint, same exact thing here. As-built joint, and I'm going to make sure that I select what I want to move and then what I want it to move with. So inside of here, I don't want it to be that, I want it to be a revolute. So if I, again, now it's going to ask me, see, a revolute asks for a position because it needs to know what origin it wants to rotate around. So I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to make sure that it's kind of like to this outside edge here. And if you kind of find yourself doing this number and it's like freaking out, find the face that you want it to be at and hold control. If you hold control, that locks it into only those positions on that face. That's going to be a heck of a lot easier later. So then I can hold control again and click that outside, and then it rotates into the part. That's okay. We'll talk about how to fix that later. But that's how you want it to look. You want it to rotate around. So now, hopefully, if I did this right, I should rotate this, and it should rotate like it's supposed to in the real world, right? Obviously, it's going to go back into the part. That's okay. This being a revolute is not associated with all of them. So you do have to go back and say assemble as-built joint to each one of these. Capture position always. Revolute, you want this piece to rotate in this piece, and we want it to go again to that outside circle. It'll rotate like that. Rotate around. Zoom in a little bit. Again, assemble as-built joint. We want that piece to go inside of this piece, and we want it to go to this outside circle. Rotates around. Press OK. Now all of them should rotate like a tripod should. Right? Next one. Join the legs together. So it says join the other two legs, and I already did that as built, revert, all that jazz. Rigid. So now it's telling me to put this red piece basically to the bottom of this piece. And all that kind of means is I got to bring it back first because remember I took it away. I like to move stuff first and then put it together so that I can see kind of the bottom of these things, because if you can't see the bottom, how are you supposed to know what you're touching? So again, what I want to move, capture position always. These ones are going to be rigid. They're not going anywhere. I want this bottom piece, that piece, to touch this piece. And it's not going to tell me where it's going to go. So I'm going to revert that back first. And I'm going to go, instead of an as-built joint, this is something completely new. Do you see what happened when I tried to do an as-built joint? I tried to make it here and here, and then it presses OK, or I try to make it like rigid. It's going to lock in right there. So now when I try and move this piece, it's going to be able to move, and this piece is going to move. It doesn't put it where I need it to be. The reason that is because when I do an as-built joint, it's expecting for the position of all the parts to be where they're supposed to be. And all it's doing is locking into those faces. In this case, I moved it so that I could see the bottom of this, right? So it's not in the position that it needs to be in, meaning it's off in la-la land over here. So to do it properly, you just go to Assemble, you go to Joint instead of Assemble to Joint, or as-built joint, and then you do capture position. Nothing really changes, it's just a different kind of joint. And you see now that when I try and select it, it allows me to select different positions or different parts of that part. We want this bottom, probably this bottom like area here, I'd say that part. And I want that to touch probably the top of this, right? Where the surface is going to touch. We don't want it to revolve. We want it to be rigid. Press OK. And that piece now is locked in. Do you see what it's locked into, though? Just the screw. So that's a problem. We didn't do any of the other stuff, okay? This should be locked, all that kind of stuff, right? So the easy fix, again, you can revert back to the position, and then we can either ground that piece. We can do whatever we want to do. I'm gonna what's the easy way to do this? Let's ground that piece. So I'm gonna go back, and I'm gonna take some of this other stuff away just so I don't have to see it, so I can get into this part and really see what's going on. Now you can see the screw that's in there. Now I'm gonna find that screw, which is right here, pan head screw, and I'm gonna also ground that just so it doesn't move around. Now when I try and move this piece, shouldn't have moved. Whoops. That's grounded. That's grounded. Well, easy way to fix even more so. Unground that. We'll move that little screw into where it's supposed to go. So the bottom of that head of that screw is supposed to go onto the bottom of this surface right here, right? So let's turn this piece off so we can see what the heck we're doing with just the screw. I want the surface here, again, joint, capture. I want the bottom of this screw, this surface, and I got this surface, I'm going to hold control, go to the center, to fit right at the bottom of this one. And it'll rotate, push it in there, rigid, okay. Now when I bring that other piece back, it should lock in, and it does. Okay, so just, I mean, it's kind of hard to visualize right at the gate, but think of how it would actually go together. I mean, how would pieces be put together? I'll bring that leg back and now we can see it. The last piece that you got to do is kind of cool. That's this globe, I call it, just because it's got literally like this little ball on top of it. This is using a ball joint. So what we're going to do is we go to Assemble, Joint, Capture Position, and this is a new one. So we've done Revolute, we've done Rigid, we've done Slider. This one's called Ball, and it's pretty straightforward. You basically just select the ball, and then inside of here you're going to see a surface, which is spherical. Okay, that's where the ball would sit. You click it again, and now it can literally rotate in any direction. Okay, obviously it's going to hit those parts, and I'm going to show you guys how to fix that last. But this kind of rotates just like this. You can see how it would touch the sides here, but well, good. Is that too much, or can I do one more thing? Is that too much? You're good? Okay. The only thing I want to talk about now is, and then watch, I'll slide, see how I can slide the stuff in now. I can't move it left and right. But the problem is that I don't like is that this stuff like can pop out, right? And this stuff here can hit the sides. Like, this is not real. That can't happen in real world, right? So what we're going to do is where we think things should react the way that they should react. These are called contact sets. And this is my first hour, so we'll see how much this is. This might be a little too much for you guys. Basically, inside of Assembly, you're going to see these contact sets. Contact sets are basically identifiers that allow real physics to work inside of this program. So if things were actually going to hit each other and slam into each other, they're going to hit each other right here. If something would catch when you pull it out, then it's going to catch in the real world. But you have to set those contacts up. So you can enable all contacts, and it won't do anything really. It'll say, you know, there's a whole bunch of problems and nothing will work. And you'll see it up here. I'm going to turn that off first, but it's not going to do anything. So what you have to do is you have to set up and enable contact sets. So we're going to enable contact sets, and then we're going to add a contact set. So it says once you enable them, then basically you're going to add contact sets with parts. All you got to do is select the parts that are going to touch each other. So this one's going to touch this one. I can press OK. It'll either say it's freaked out or the joint conflicts or something like that, which it did in this case, so it's not that big of a deal. But if I enable all the contacts then, uh-oh, that's not good. Maybe ignored the whole end part here. It's giving me an error. This part must not really go inside of there tightly, or this is too tight, I guess, between these two parts, so they're already touching each other. If pieces are already touching each other, would they move in the real world? No, there'd be friction, so they don't like that. Don't worry about contact sets. We won't do that yet. I'll do that another one. I know it works on another one. Okay, all you're doing is adding all these joints and all that kind of stuff. So this part should bend, this part should fly, this part should go inside of this other part like it's not supposed to. And you can see all these other little pieces. That's it. I just want you guys to work on joints.